Welcome to the farmhouse. Today I'm going to show you how to make tortillas, flour tortillas, right at home. Once you try this recipe, you'll never buy store-bought tortillas again. You're going to need a few items. Need some lard or shortening will work fine as well. Flour, I'm using all-purpose organic by Great Swan. Salt, also using sea salt in my recipe. You're going to need a large bowl, a measuring cup for liquids, as well as measuring utensils for solids. You'll need a griddle or a flat skillet. Cast iron or stoneware works best. You will need a tortilla press or a rolling pin, and I'll show you both ways on how to do that. So, if you're ready, let's get started. So one of the first things I like to do is, because I like to make my tortillas by hand, you can use a mixer, but I prefer to do it by hand, is put on my apron so that I don't get flour all over my clothes. So once you are fully protected, you can go ahead and start measuring out your ingredients. The recipe is actually really simple. It is 6 cups of flour, and you can see I'm not being actually really precise, and I'm doing a double batch, so just divide this in half for a single batch of tortillas. To 6 cups of flour, you're going to add 1 tablespoon of salt. If you were doing a single batch, it'd be 3 and then 1/2 teaspoons of salt. Using pink Himalayan sea salt. And then I go ahead and try to just incorporate that salt all through the flour so that you don't have any tortillas that are saltier than the other one. Messy. Then to that, you're going to add your lard. Before I do the lard, I'm going to get 2 cups of filtered water. Go ahead and put that in the microwave for 2 minutes. Now that's going to bring it up to where it's going to be hot, but I can still touch it. Then I'm going to add 6 tablespoons of lard or shortening. Now I prefer to use lard just because the tortillas have better flavor than shortening. I have used butter before, and they tasted like tortilla biscuits. They were good. They'd be good with breakfast, but they weren't quite what I was looking for. So that's 4 tablespoons. 5 and 6. Now, for the fun part. You can do this in your mixer and put your regular mixing blade on and or your food processor, but you want to incorporate all of the lard you just put in into the flour. I always say this is where I add my love. And what you're doing is, unlike biscuits where you want little bits of butter or fat or lard, you want this lard to be incorporated completely into the flour. You don't want there to be any pea size or grain size. You want it to be totally just for the flour and salt to start feeling like wet sand at the beach. The thing about doing tortillas this way is you have to have a little bit of time, a little bit of patience, and they'll turn out great. find it meditative. It smells good. Nothing like the smell of lard. Smells like country biscuits. Don't know if you can tell, but there's still some pretty big chunks of lard in there, and you don't want that. So you can see there's no big pea size, it's not clumpy. Oop, there was one. Hence why I buy hand. I've done it in the mixer and they're good, they're fine. They're perfectly, I'd eat a ton of them. But they just are so much better when you take the time and do it by hand. I don't know why. I think it's the amount of love you put in is different. So what I mean by wet sand is, see, it's dry, but I can make sand, like, you know, wet sand balls. Okay, so that's done. Literally flour, salt, lard. Warm water. She's warm, but she's not so warm. She's not boiling. I'd say probably a good 100, 110 degrees. 2 cups. And now look, comes the kneading. She's sticky at first. What you're doing is working that water into the flour, creating the gluten, which is what gives your tortillas that chew. Be prepared. About 10 minutes. Out of the bowl, onto the counter. Don't go too far with your bowl, you'll need that again. Yeah, flour's being good to me today. Sometimes the flour will, a little more water, a little less water, just depending on the humidity. See what I mean by messy? I use this time as physical therapy for my neck. Very cautious about how I'm moving. Those getting harder to move. It gets to be too much, you just take a rest and let it rest. The best part about making breads and stuff. It doesn't care if you need to rest 5 minutes to stretch. So she's gonna rest. Got the rest I needed. Tortilla dough's no worse for wear. I was able to get a drink and stretch so that I don't hurt myself by making tortillas of all things. So you just have to make it comfortable for you. You really can't mess this up. I mean, you could. I take that back. You kind of could, but you really, it takes a lot. Follow this recipe and you won't. So she's still not ready. Now she's pulling. We just got a little bit more. It's amazing how you can feel the consistency of it change as you work it. Almost. Trying to untie myself. What I'm looking for is for when I pull the dough, that it kind of pulls, like if I pull it this way, it pulls back, And if I flip it inside on itself, the outside of the flip isn't ripping or pulling apart, that it's stretching beautifully. I'm going to turn it in on itself. And I have to really get in there and rip it to get it to separate. So it's looking pretty good. And you can see with the weight of it, it'll stretch and pull kind of like slime would. But it's not ripping and it's not sticking. I mean, a little bit to my nails, but it's not like in the beginning all stuck to my hands. Still soft. I think I'm gonna be okay. See, at this point, because she's still a little sticky, you could add a little more flour, but we've got some pretty ideal conditions going on right now here in my kitchen. So I think that if I just leave it, it's gonna continue to absorb the moisture. The flour that I have in there will continue to absorb the moisture, because I don't want it to be too dry, because then I can't press them into tortillas. So, but if you look, she comes back. She's got some to give to her. So she's ready. Your bowl you had. Lard. About a teaspoon. I'll warm it up in my hand. And then I'm gonna give the love to the dough. Now, you can use oil, a little bit in the bottom. I prefer to use the lard, just to keep the flavor consistent. At this point, you're gonna wanna cover it with some saran wrap or plastic wrap. And this will just keep your dough from drying out. Now, this is not like a yeast bread. You're not gonna get a double rise. You're not gonna get any of that. All you're doing at this point is just allowing the dough, the flour in the dough, to continue absorbing that moisture from the water that you added and the gluten to begin to develop in the dough. You're gonna let that rest for about an hour. You can let it rest for as little as 30 minutes. I've done that, but it is usually best to let it rest an hour and just let it hang out in the kitchen. I always cover mine with a towel and leave it set right here on the counter. So I will see you in an hour. Okay, so it's been an hour. Let's see what she looks like. Oh, nice. I'm gonna hang on to our saran wrap because we'll use that again. All done with this, I'm gonna get a little bit of lard. And you're gonna start rolling your tortillas. So, into balls. So tortillas, depending on how big a tortilla you want, I usually try to make mine about 50 grams. So let's see here. That's 72. 58, close enough. So that's going to give you probably about a 6 to 8 inch tortilla. So depending on how big of tortillas you want is really going to depend on the size of the balls you make. Lard in the hand. You'll roll your tortilla. ball. And that's gonna sit and rest. And you're gonna do that with all of your dough. Let's see, you got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 21. 21. They're all about 50 grams to 65 grams in weight. Take that saran wrap you saved. You don't want them to dry out. Just set it on there lightly. We will get a little more lard. We're going to let these rest for about 10 to 20 minutes. And I'm going to clean up while I'm doing that. One of the things that I am so glad that I received as a gift is a tortilla press. It makes making tortillas so much easier than using a rolling pin. It's possible with a rolling pin, and I will show you, but it does make it so much easier. So if tortillas are something that you have in your life on a regular basis and you plan on making tortillas on a regular basis, I would recommend investing in a tortilla press. It makes a world of difference. What I use inside my tortilla press is a bag. Obviously you don't want to put your dough in here on your cast iron because it's going to make a mess. So you got to have something to protect that. Some people use wax paper. I find this just to be the easiest. So what I do is I just cut the Ziploc part off, or zipper part, closure part. And then I'm going to open it up at the seams. Now what I have found is if you leave one of the side seams, it opens and closes easier for you as opposed to cutting both of the side seams and leaving the bottom, because then your plastic just tends to want to fold however it wants and can make for a little more difficult time with your tortillas. Voila, ready to go. For your rolling pin, you'll need a little more flour so you can flour your surface and roll your tortillas that way. So you'll want to make sure that you keep your flour handy. The next thing we're going to want to do is, while these are still resting, got this all ready to go, we're going to go ahead and get our griddle preheating on a medium to medium high heat. Want to have a spatula? You want to have a place to set your tortillas. I use a couple kitchen towels, tea towel, and I will lay them in here. I'll go ahead and show you how to use the tortilla press first, and then we'll make one with the rolling pin. Just turn my cast iron griddle down a little bit because it's come up to temp. You're going to take your tortilla dough, place it on your plastic, fold your other side over, and press. Turn it, and press. Peel your plastic back, and you're ready to go onto your hot griddle. For your rolling pin, you get a little flour on your surface, flour on your rolling pin. Do the bigger one. And grab your tortilla. I start by just patting it down some. roll and turn. And flip. Either way is fine. Either way, you have a tortilla. One's a little faster than the other. Now, they're both ready for the griddle. I'll bring you over and get you a little closer look. Oh, make sure it's nice and warm. I have a seasoned cast iron skillet. I don't have any oil or butter or any type of thing like that. The easiest way to get it off of your plastic is to lay it on your hand and grasp the end of it with your thumb and then peel the plastic away like that, right? And then what I like to do is then once I have it in my hand, I'll kind of let gravity take over a little bit and let it hang, and I'll turn it. You just want to make sure that the sides, it don't fold onto itself. And then on the griddle, you want to start at the furthest end of your pan and drop the tortilla towards you is the way I do it. Now, obviously, if you're frying tortillas, you're not going to want to do that because you'll get hot grease all over you. But where we're just grilling the tortillas, it's just the easiest way to make sure you keep the wrinkles out of the tortilla. You should hear a little sizzle, which I do, so that's a good sign. It'll immediately start to dry out. So what I like to do is push down my sides a little bit just to make sure that they're down. And then I just let it start drying and cooking. This is an important part. If your skillet's too hot, you'll cook your tortillas too quickly. You'll either end up with doughy tortillas or bubbled tortillas, but you can see when it's ready to be flipped, it'll move. And then you just want to give it a good flip. And I always give it a little zhuzh and let it cook more. Don't be scared because the first couple of tortillas always come out a little wonky. Usually takes me a couple to get them, good. Oh, see, getting them to puff. There we go. You don't mind it puffing up. You don't want a pita. You don't want a pita bread. You want a tortilla. Nice and golden brown. Comes over here to our tea towel. Cover it up. All right, I'm gonna keep making these and I will be back when they're done to show you the finished product. Now, once you have all of your tortillas grilled, cooked, I take them and I fan them out on a towel. This way, they don't generate too much steam in between the tortillas and turn soggy on you. Now, you can eat them now, go ahead and make your tacos, burritos, whatever you're gonna do, or you can lay them out like this, bring them to room temperature. Once they're room temperature, then you can put them in a plastic bag and seal them and store them for later use. One of my favorite things to do is when they're hot and just fresh off of the griddle, I like to take some good old-fashioned butter and put butter on there. Then I take a little bit of sugar, not a lot, just a little, like that. And then you're gonna take a little cinnamon, sprinkle that on top, like that. And then you want to roll it up. Better than any store-bought tortilla. I hope you enjoy this recipe from my farmhouse to yours. If you like this type of thing, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Also, don't forget to hit that bell. That way you're notified of any upcoming videos. Until next time, have a great day.